What's up, guys? So today I'm gonna try and actually wrap up the 240. I feel like I've said that every video as of recent, but I have somebody coming to replace the windshield today. I have new belts for everything. I have the convertible top completely done now, which is awesome. And that was the hardest thing out of anything I had to do to get that car ready to go back on the road. Yeah, so today it's really just a matter of buttoning up the cooling system, getting the intake back on. I might reroute it, haven't decided yet, but it's a matter of getting the intake back on. I'm gonna move the wiring harness so that I can lower the car a little bit, and I'm gonna try and get my tires mounted on my wheels. So let's get to working on the car, and hopefully I'll be able to drive it home today and leave the CRZ here. Okay, so I didn't end up getting my windshield done. As you can see, it's kind of foggy now because we have this beautiful pile of ice and the ground is frozen here. And now it's starting to warm up and it's finally starting to melt. We just threw some salt on, and understandably so, understandably so, the guy from J and Phillips did not want to put the windshield in with all of the ice on the ground because he did. Yeah, no, he didn't want to fall and get hurt, which I understand. So I have to figure out getting that all situated. Isn't a big deal. I was just trying to get my car inspected before all the events happen, but I can get it done whenever. So now I'm gonna move on to finishing up the cooling system. Finally, I feel like I've said this like every video, but I'm gonna get the upper radiator hose in. I got the right size piece I need for the crossover. That was weird. And I just need to basically build it and then get it so that the intake fits as well. And first we're going to address all of this flooding that's over here that we're not that happy about. So let's get to finishing up the radiator. Okay, so I got the upper radiator hose completely done. That was the hard part of the cooling system. The bottom one is already on, it just needs to be tightened down. So I'm going to take care of that a little bit later today. So you can see here, what I did was I took the factory hose and I made a little bit of a U. It's a little bit kinked, but not terrible. And then I have this crossover pipe that I may end up switching out for like a legitimate crossover pipe at some point, but we'll see how it works. And does this U with the factory one, and then I cut down the G plus hose so that it does this nice little bend, and I have some foam underneath on both sides so it doesn't rub against the intake. I had to shorten the intake in order to get it to slide in front of the radiator because it would sit on top of this the outlet. So I got everything put in. I got the intake shortened up so that it actually tucks under, and it will go right here. I'm probably gonna cut this off because I'm not gonna use that, and then the filter will sit and it will have a good amount of room by itself. It's not perfect, but it is functional. It's not ideal, but I think I can make it work, and I might be able to clean it up a little bit later on. Maybe I'll get another G plus hose and do the same thing with this and see how that ends up working out. Overall, happy, and it will work. Okay, so now that I got the radiator all set, I'm going to start trying to move this wiring harness. I already got it tucked up a little bit, but I'm not happy with how this is. This is still gonna probably rub against the tire. And on the convertibles, we have this stupid little brace that I don't know if I want to cut it off. I was talking to Evan about it. He doesn't think it's a great idea. So I'm gonna drill out these spot welds and then pull this bracket back, run the harness through this little gap, run it along like it is now, and then I'm gonna re-weld this brace back on. So it should be fine. It's a lot of work just to kind of avoid cutting some wires, but I'd rather not be stranded anywhere. Okay, so I finished up moving the wiring harness on the passenger side. You can see here I re-welded right there. It looks kind of shitty, but it works. I ran the wiring harness through this edge, I put this little piece of hose here to protect it because it is very close. And there was already this hole existing that will keep it up above the like fender well, whatever you want to call it. So it will stay out of the, it will prevent it from interfering with the tire in any way. So that's good. This harness here, I actually ran around. This used to come through here and go over there somewhere. So you just kind of pop it over. Didn't have to extend any wires, so easy enough, looks good. And I'm going to throw the fender back on. All right, so we got the fender back on with the wiring harness tucked up. With the wiring harness tucked up above the fender well, whatever you want to call it. It was a pain in the ass to get this fender on because first off, I was having trouble getting this gap to line up here, but I managed to, this bolt was giving me a lot of trouble trying to get that in. And I ended up getting that in, and then the bottom bolts here were not lining up perfectly, so I actually took a jack against the tire and pushed the fender back to get it to line up correctly. So it has a pretty even fender gap all the way around. Now that we got all that stuff situated, I need to run to the store. I need to get some coolant. I need to get a couple of hose clamps, and I think that should be everything to get the engine bay back together. I showed this before, but you can see the coolant pipe, the intake with the filter back on it. I need to get a new filter because that filter is very shitty, but I'm not worried about that right now. Then I need to jump the car because the battery died. And I got some Nismo motor mounts. They hold the engine way better. If you didn't notice when we started it, it was rocking back and forth like crazy. So I need to finish the brackets that I have also for the radiator. So I'm gonna get working on the brackets and hopefully have everything buttoned up. And next time I do this, we'll hopefully be starting the car or having it jumped ready to start the car. Okay, so I'm not sure what I left off saying I was doing last time, but I have the, let me get a light over here. I have the radiator and everything pretty much all set. I just need to drill the holes in the mounts. Lower radiator hose is on completely. Top radiator hose is on, tightened down with all the clamps. I ran to the store. I got 2 gallons of distilled water, 1 of concentrated coolant. I'm gonna start drilling the holes for these brackets here. So I'm gonna use the rubber washer on this, but this hole's a little bit too big. They're too small. So I'm gonna drill the holes right here. There's already holes in the frame rail that I'm going to use, so I'm going to measure that, drill the holes in these brackets, and then get to drilling these. Okay, so I got everything set up for the coolant. I'm gonna start dumping in some water first, that way I don't waste the coolant if there is a leak. So I have this funnel that raises, even though the car is already in the air, I have this funnel that raises it so that this is the highest point, so all the water should, or all the air should try and come here first, and we can let it bubble over. And once I get it so that everything is sitting still, then I'm going to start the car, hopefully start the car, and we can bleed the system or burp the coolant system. So I'm going to start filling this up now. Okay, so it's the end of the day. I didn't get as much done as I wanted to. We ended up having to do a lot of stuff. So I ended up getting the exhaust bolted back up. I didn't show that because it's kind of boring. I don't think anyone wants to see somebody putting an exhaust in. There's tons of videos about that. I finished up the engine bay. You can't really see it, it's dark outside, but the crossover pipe works. The coolant is pretty much all bled. I didn't let the car get up to temperature, but I'm pretty sure the guy before me actually took out the thermostat because there's already coolant running through. So I might have to address that at some point. So everything's good, everything's back together, the car runs, it starts up. It's misfiring a little bit, but I also have a vacuum leak at the idle air control valve, so it's not running very well. And I think I may have fouled out one of the spark plugs a while back. I'm gonna order a new set of spark plugs, and I'm gonna order everything else I need for the drift event on, I think April 20th is the next drift event. So hopefully that's the first one I'm gonna be driving at. I missed the signups for the 16th, and clearly car's in pieces. The seat isn't even mounted, so I'm gonna order a passenger seat, all that fun stuff. And we'll be driving as of April 20th, and I'm going to as many events this year as possible. So if you like the videos, you want to follow along with any of the builds we have going on here, move slowly, then subscribe. Let me know what you think of the videos, and bye.